how many days were given to man in order to complete his cycle? 7. How many days? 7. 6 days for what? Work. And 1 day for what? And 6 plus 1 equals what? 7. So if God made man in his image, then how much does God have on a larger scale? He also works on a cycle of what? 7. He works on a cycle of 6 plus 1. I mean, think of the Sabbath. This is why we're 7 day Adventists. It's one of the great reasons. Now, what is it? How much time does God have to do all of his work? All we have to do is look at how much time man has to do what? All of his work, because man was created in the image of what? So question, how much time does man have? Talk to me. Remember the Sabbath day to do what? Keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou what? Labor and do how much? Oh, how much? So the work must be finished by the end of what? 6. And then what? And then he, on the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord. Then he does what? He rests for how many periods? 1. So man, 6 period of work, 1 period of rest. But God is on a much bigger scale, but we can still understand the principle. This is a compacted prophecy. You understand? So what we have to find out, if man has 6 days to work and 1 day to rest, we must find out from the Bible, not man, not what man thinks, but what the Bible says, how much is a day like with Jesus? Is that a good question? Let's go to the Bible. 2 Peter. What book did I say? 2 Peter. Let's go to 2 Peter very quickly. 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 3. Notice what the Bible says in 2 Peter chapter 3. The Bible tells us of this in the Bible. 2 Peter 3, that a day is with the Lord, the Bible explains. In fact, the Bible says the day of the Lord is as 1,000 what? Let's see this from the Bible. 2 Peter 3, beginning in verse 3. When you get there, let me know by saying amen. 2 Peter 3, the Bible is sweet, brothers and sisters. 2 Peter 3, beginning in verse 3, what does the Bible say? Talking about the plan of redemption. The Bible says, verse 3, knowing this first, that there shall come in what days? 2 Peter 3, 3. In the last days, scoffers, walking after their own lust. Notice what they say, verse 4. And saying, where is the promise of his what? Coming. Talking about the coming of Jesus. Now notice, it takes us down to the coming of Christ in thought. Then it says, for since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of what? So it takes us from the beginning of creation, expands a context to the second coming of Jesus, but then in that context, notice what it says. Next verse. Next verse says, verse 5, for this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water, and what? Anybody know what time frame that's talking about? Anybody know what time that is? It's talking about the flood. The what? When the earth was standing out of the water, but in the water when it overflowed. In fact, next verse explains. Verse 6 says, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with what? Water did what? So that the world came to an end at the flood. God was giving us a sample of the end of the world, the second coming of Jesus Christ. But now God's going to show us how to span the time from the beginning to the second coming. Next verse says, verse 7 says, but the heavens and the earth which were now by the same word are kept where? Now, was there a time limit associated with the flood? Yes or no? Did God give a limit to how long the earth could last before the flood? Yes or no? He said to Noah, his days will be 120 years. When that limit was reached, the flood came, the world came to an end. This was an example. Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. The world has a limit. Notice, let's continue. Bible goes on. Bible says in verse 7, but the heavens which are now, by the same word are kept in store, reserved. Now when you reserve something, what do? You hold it until a particular time. You reserve a seat at a restaurant. You cannot be there yet. And the waitress says, I'm going to hold it for a little while, but when that time comes that you told me, I'm going to leave it up. So the world is reserved. Let's see how long. It goes on. It says, but the same word are kept in store, reserved unto the fire against the day of what? Judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Well, how are we going to understand this, Lord? Verse 8. Let's read it together. But what? Beloved, be not ignorant of what? So if you forget everything else, don't forget this, of this one thing. That one day is with the Lord as what? 1,000 years, and what? 1,000 years as what? So if man has 6 days to do all of his work and 1 day to rest, and man was made in the image of God, what is a day like with the Lord? Talk to me, somebody. Like 1,000 years. So then how long does Jesus have to do his work? How long? 6,000 years. How long to rest? 1,000 years. And then the work is what? Finished. Where is that 1,000 year taking place? Revelation 20 says that 1,000 years will be where? In heaven. We're going to be resting. Redemption is going to be finished. God's going to be with his people. At the end of 6, they're going to be resting with him for 1,000. And then sin and sinners are going to be destroyed. And Eden lost will become Eden restored. This is the history and the plan of redemption. It's a wonderful plan. What do you say? My brother says, all you got to do is count to 7. Let's count to 7. Talk to me. Let's count. 1, 2, what else? I can't hear you.
4, 5, 6,
7. That's good. Now, each one of these represent 1,000 years. 7,000 years altogether. Eden lost, first 1,000, Eden restored, last 7,000. You're at 4,000 year period. Does anybody know what happened in the 4,000 year period? Something happened. Time was given to the working of Satan's principles. It was God's purpose to place things on an eternal basis of security, and in the council of heaven it was decided that what? Time must be given for Satan to develop the principles. You know how much time he gave him? He gave him 6,000 years, but it was broken up into 3 parts. How many parts? All right. It says, he claimed that these were, time must be given for Satan to develop the principles which were the foundation of his system of government. Satan had claimed that these were superior to God's principles. Time was given for the working of Satan's principles, that they might be seen by the heavenly universe. Satan lay admitted to sin, and the plan of redemption was put in what? For 4,000 years, something happened before the whole plan was over. That 4,000 year period, something happened on the earth. Anybody know what happened on the earth in about 4,000 years? Talk to me. Christ was standing at the point of transition between 2 economies and then 2 great festivals. He, the spotless Lamb of God, was about to present himself as a what? Sin offering. That he would bring to end the system of types and ceremonies. So when Jesus got ready to die on the cross, he was going to bring to end the earthly sanctuary. The veil rent in twain from top to bottom. The earthly sanctuary gave way to the heavenly sanctuary. The earthly priesthood to the heavenly priesthood. It says, for 1,000 years they point to his death. For how long? For what? 4. So Jesus came to this earth about the 4,000 year period. Are you with me? All right. That's the cross. Then we have another 2,000 years. Then Jesus is going to come out of that most holy place. And then we're going to spend 1,000 years in heaven. Then that 7,000 years is over. Eden lost, Eden restored. Now let's put time to this. If each one of these represented 1,000 years, let's put days to this. Day 1 would be what? What day? We call it what? Sunday. Day 2 what? Monday. Day 3 what? I can't hear you. Day 3 what? Day 4 what? Day 5 what? Day 6 what? Day 7 what? 7. So at Wednesday, talk to me. Why did Jesus come to the earth for the 4,000 year period? What do you and I do at Wednesday if we go to church? What do? We have what? Midweek prayer meeting. Am I right? You know, Jesus came on the great week of time to have a midweek prayer meeting with the earth. Praise God. Wednesday prayer meeting came up about 4,000 years. Now, if you were an old Seventh Adventist, after you met at prayer meeting, what would be the next time you met again? Friday night vespers. It used to be in the songs. Our hymn says, Friday eve at set of sun. Christian households then should meet, pray and sing at Jesus' feet. Holy Sabbath day of rest. So when's the next time Jesus come back? Friday, to have Friday vespers sundown service. Well, what would it correspond to? What day? Talk to me, somebody. Friday, 6th day. That meant at the end of 6, Jesus is coming back to have Friday sundown service, and it has to happen on what? Sabbath is based on time. Now, and Satan wants to change these times and laws. Now, my brothers and sisters, look at this. When he comes back here, and at that very time, he's coming back on time, and then he's going to rest that Sabbath for how long? 1,000 years. And after that Sabbath rest, we're coming back down to this earth, and sin and sinners will be destroyed, and Eden lost will be Eden restored. This is the plan. And the devil, you know that in 2016, we're at the end of this plan. Every 2,000 years, something has happened. First 2,000 years, flood came. Second 2,000 years, they made 4,000, Jesus came. Third 2,000 years, you put them together, Jesus will come the second time, the world will come to an end. It's going to happen just as God said. Listen to this. Now, this reason says, the great plan of redemption results in fully bringing back the world into God's what? This is the plan of redemption. Patriarchs and Prophets 3:42. It says, all that was lost by sin is restored. Not only man, but the earth is what? To be the eternal abode for the obedient. For how long? So my brothers and sisters, at 6,000 years, God's going to depose. He's going to vomit. He's going to take sin. He's going to scatter Satan out of this land, and he's going to stop it. And he says, this is not your home. This is the home of my children. He evicts the devil that's been causing problems as an absentee landlord for 6,000 years. And then when you had a house problem, he didn't fix your house. You had a leak, he didn't fix it. You had a problem with your commode, he didn't fix it. You had a problem, he didn't fix it. But Jesus, he takes care of those who belong to him. Is he going to come on time? Yes or no? Go to Leviticus 16. Let's go there quickly. Leviticus 16. Leviticus the 16th chapter. Leviticus 16, notice what the Bible says. The end of the Day of Atonement. What takes place at the end of the Day of Atonement? Let's pick up. Leviticus 16 speaks of the whole Day of Atonement. We're going to look to the end of it. Leviticus 16, beginning in verse 20. And when you get there, let me know by saying amen. Now, this is the type, this is the shadow. My brothers and sisters, what day was the Day of Atonement? It was the 10th day of the what? 7th month. It was a day of cleansing. All sin was removed from the heart and the record and life of the believers. All sin was taken back. Now look at Leviticus 16, beginning in verse 20. Now we're going to the end of the Day of Atonement. Let's pick up there. Are you there? Amen? Let's read that together. What does the Bible say? The Bible says, and when he had made a what? An end. A what? An end of reconciling the holy place, that is the most holy, and the tabernacle of congregation and the altar, he shall bring the live goat. The live goat represents not God, but who? Satan. Now question, how do we know that this is the end of the Day of Atonement and not the beginning? How do we know this is the end of the Day of Atonement in the time? How do we know? Look at the verse. Look at the verse. The answer's in the Bible. Don't look at man, look at the Bible. How do we know from verse 20 that this is the end of the Day of Atonement? How do we know that? It says in verse 20, and when he have made not a beginning, verse 20 says, and when he have made an what? Of reconciling the sanctuary. So this is the end of the Day of Atonement, the end of the cleansing. The beginning started October 22nd, 1844. We're in 2016. Do you think we're still at the beginning, or do you think we're coming to the end? Watch this, because it has to end on time. Then it says he's coming to the end. Now what happens at the end of the Day of Atonement when the sanctuary is cleansed is in verse 21. What takes place? It says, and Aaron, which represents the priest, shall lay what? Both his hands upon the what? Head of the live goat, and do what? Confess over him all their iniquities. How much? All the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their sins and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat. Question, where did the priest put his hand? How many hands did he put on? One or two? Where did he lay those hands? On the feet, on the tail, on the back? Where did he lay those hands? On the head. Now, I have faith in you, please. Answer carefully. I have faith in you. Why does the priest put his hands on the head of the scapegoat and not the tail or the foot of the scapegoat? Because at the end of the plan of redemption, the whole plan says that the serpent's head, Satan's head, the goat's head is going to do what? But that didn't happen at the rinse cycle. It didn't happen at the wash cycle. It happens at the end of the three phases, which is the end of the Day of Atonement. Are you with me? And the devil says, I can stop phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. I can stop this, but he lost phase 1, lost phase 2. We're in phase 3, and so he said, I got to stop it. Now, my brothers and sisters, this is what's taking place. So this is the end of that phase, and it goes on. It says that he's going to come out, put it on the head of the scapegoat. Now, who brings the goat away? Verse 21 says, and Aaron shall lay both his hands upon his head. Then at the end of it says, and he shall send him where? I'm at the end of verse 21. The end of verse 21. And all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat. Let's read together. And shall what? Send him away by the hand of a what? That should be circled in your Bible. So the scapegoat, which represents Satan, is taken away by the hand of a what? Fit man. Now that word fit man from the original means what? It comes from the Hebrew word iti. That word fit man comes from the word iti. What does it mean? What does it mean? So the fit man is a man who comes on. So that means the one who holds Satan, that fit man, on the end of the Day of Atonement, he comes on the Day of Atonement on time. What is the time? For 6,000 years, the great harvest has been in progress. Now all have made the decision. The time has what? So when is the time? At the end of what? 6,000 years. Watch this. At the coming of Christ, the earth is empty of its inhabitants. The whole earth appears like a desolate what? Now the event takes place, foreshadowed in the last solemn service of the day of what? Then it quotes Leviticus 16:21, just like we read. This is great controversy. 656, 657, next paragraph. It says, in like manner, when the work of atonement in the heavenly sanctuary has been completed or finished, then in the presence of God and heavenly angels, what's going to take place? And the host of the redeemed, the sins of God's people will be placed upon what? So the goat represents who? Talk to me, somebody. Satan. And he will be declared guilty of all the evil which he has caused them to commit. And as the scapegoat was sent away into a land not inhabited, so Satan will be banished to the desolate earth and uninhabited and dreary what? The Revelator foretells the banishment of Satan and the condition of chaos and desolation to which the earth is to be reduced. And he declares that this condition will exist for how long? So at the end of the 6,000, Jesus puts the sin on the head of Satan. Then he's going to be in that condition how long? That's the 7,000 years. The Bible connects it, Spirit prophecy connects it. It says the same thing. Now watch. Interesting, it says concerning these types, which the Day of Atonement was a part of. It says these types were fulfilled not only as to the event, but as to the what? So the event, not only must the sin be put on Satan, but it has to happen on what? Was sin put on Jesus? Yes or no? In order for the plan of redemption, the sinner had to transfer his sin from himself to the Lamb, and the Lamb had to what? Die. On the day of Passover, did the Lamb die? Yes or no? Did he die on time? With sin upon him on the tree? Yes or no? For the wages of sin is death. And Jesus said, behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. Jesus died on time as a Passover lamb the very day and hour. Now, my brother and sister, inspiration says, in like manner, the types which relate to the what? Second advent, not might, but what? Must be fulfilled when? At the what? Time pointed out in the symbolic service. So the Day of Atonement tells the time, brothers and sisters. And it tells us, what is the symbol? When the outer court, and the typical outer court represents the earth, just where Jesus died, where the altar is, where the Lamb died, the earth, Jesus died on earth, the most holy place in heaven, the sanctuary is in heaven. That means that when Jesus leaves the most holy place in heaven, where is he going to come? He's going to come where? Where does the priest come when he gets ready to put the sin on the scapegoat? He comes back to the outer court. Am I right? So in the antitype, Jesus, our high priest, is going to finish his work in the most holy place. He's going to come out of the most holy place to put the sins on Satan in the typical outer court, which means that when he comes from heaven to the earth, we call that what event? The what? Second coming. So this is the type, the end of the Day of Atonement, and type takes us to the second advent of Jesus Christ. Do you understand? So my brothers and sisters, it must, in like manner, the types which relate to the second advent must be fulfilled at the time pointed out. Did Jesus come the first time on time? Yes or no? He was born in the fullness of time. Did he start his public ministry on time? Yes or no? Did he die on time? Did he resurrect on time? Did he go to the sanctuary in the holy place on time? Did he move to the most holy place on October 22nd on time? Will he come out on time? It's the end of 6,000 years. My brothers and sisters, we see this. God does this in cycles of seven. The 7,000 years. Now the question is, in 2016, where are we? Are we almost at the 6,000 year mark? Yes or no? Now my brothers and sisters, do you know that from Genesis to 31 AD, when Jesus died on the cross, the time that man first sinned in the garden, up until the cross is about how long? Now notice I put about, it's not exact. I put what? And we'll see that. And it says Christ was standing at the point of transition between two economies. It's talking about the death of Christ, right? It says he was about to bring to an end the system of types. When did he bring to an end the system of types? When he was born or when he died? When he died. That's when the veil was rent, earthly sanctuary was no more. For what? Then had pointed to his death. So that meant from the time the first lamb was slain by Adam and Eve, that pointed to the death, it was about how long? So from Genesis to the cross is about 4,000 years. Am I right? Now that's about. Everything else, though, is exact. See, we know the exact time that Jesus was in the holy place. Because he went in there in 31 what time? 31 what? And he stayed there until what year? What year? 1844. Now, when is 1844? Talk to me. How long is that? Between 31 AD and 1844. How long is that? How long is that? Now, we're going to go, we have to finish this about it's going to go to the time that we were told. Let's continue. 1813 years. You take 31 AD, you add to it. You add to it to 1844, you get 1813 years. About the most holy place. Now, the most holy place How long has it been there? Since 1844. Is this exact? Are we guessing, or is this exact? Are we still in the most holy place? Yes or no? He's still in the most holy place. We're in 2016. How long has he been in the most holy place? Since 1844. Talk to me. 172 years. Now, if you add those up, talk to me, and you add those up quickly, they tell me in Trinidad you're good mathematics. How much is that? You add all that up together. How much is that? Talk to me. What is that? That's about 5,900 and what? 85 years. Now, the generation is 40 years. Do we have another generation come on the scene? Because everything's going to finish at the limit. There's a limit. The limit is 6,000. That means that that's only a few years until 6,000. Now, you follow me? Now, my brother and sister, you know what some people do? They will look at that and they'll say, wait a minute. That's 5,985. And there's 6,000 in the end. That means then, and about what? In just a few more years, 6,000. And that means about 2031, then, about 2031, it's going to come to an end. And they say, well, at least have about 15, 16 years. I can look at some more scandalous. I can listen to some more rap and world. No. But that's not true, brothers and sisters. Because remember, this is not exact. This is what? God did not give us the ability to understand the day and the hour before probation closed, but he said that we can know the generation. Matthew 24 says that they now know no man, verse 36. But verses 32 to 34 says, and we studied this week, verse 32 to 34 says, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the... Then it says, this generation shall not what? Till all these things be fulfilled. That's not the first generation, that is the what? So while we may not know the day and hour, we can know the final generation. Now, is there coming another generation? We don't have 40 years. That means that we're in that generation. But I'm going to tell you something, brothers and sisters. Look at this. I'm going to show you this. Because somebody says, well, I thought you said 4,000 years. He was down on the cross. But that's not the only statement. You got to study the spirit of prophecy the same way you study the what? Bible. Watch what it says. Desire Vedas 48. It says, the story of Bethlehem is and what? Exalts this thing. Now, what is Bethlehem? Is that the death of Christ or the birth of Christ? That's his birth. It says, yet human pride and self-sufficiency stay rebuked in his presence. Yet this was but the beginning of this wonderful condescension. It would have been almost an infinite humiliation for the Son of God to take man's nature even when Adam stood in innocence. But he didn't take man's nature when he stood in innocence. He took man's nature after it failed. So it says, but Jesus accepted humanity when the race had been weakened by what? So this says that the birth of Christ, not his death, but the birth of Christ was about what? I can't hear you. About what? Do you see that? That's talking about the birth. Do you see that? Now look at this quotation. This is Select Missions 267, 268. It says, Christ in the what? Wilderness of temptation. When is this? Is this the birth of Christ now? He's already 30 years old. He starts his public ministry. He's gone to the wilderness now. It says, Christ in the wilderness of temptation stood in Adam's place to bear the test he failed to what? Endure. Here Christ overcame in the sinner's behalf. What does it say? 4,000 years after Adam turned his back. So it says the wilderness was about how long? Now wait a minute. I thought you said the birth was about 4,000. Now they're saying the wilderness is about what? 4,000. 27 years, nearly 30 years later. Then it says, Christ was standing at the point of transition between two economies. He was about to bring in the system of temple ceremonies that for how long? Had pointed to his what? Now this is no longer the wilderness, this is at the cross. So either you're talking about the birth of Christ, or whether you're talking about the temptation of Christ, or whether you're talking about the death of Christ, it all says it's about what? So what we find out is that the 4,000 years is not trying to tell us the day, the hour, the year. It's trying to take us to the life or to the generation. How old was Jesus when he died? How much is a biblical generation? 40 years. So it's taking us to the generation. You understand? So no matter, it's no time to us. In fact, we don't even have 16 years if you study the prophecies. So man said, you know that we're actually closer because the fact that we might have about 14 years or 15 years is when you take it from the cross. If 31 AD is 2,000 years, or 4,000 years, 2 more thousand years would be 2 more thousand years would be 2031. Do you understand what we're saying? So that would be from the cross 4,000 years. But if you started from his birth, we already passed 6,000 years. Which means that we have less than 16 years or 14 years. How much less we don't know. But you know what the greatest evidence is? This is the generation that shall not pass. No more generation. Young people, you're going to go through this crisis now. This is why we got to recognize it now, brothers and sisters. You know what the greatest evidence is, though, with the coming of the crisis so near? Go to Luke chapter 2. What book did I say? Let's go to Luke chapter 2. It's not even, you're going to find out the date was to take us to a generation, but the greatest evidence is not based on date. The greatest evidence is based on an event. On a what? What do you think that event is? Talk to me, somebody. Do you know that when the national ceremony passes, it tells us that we have but a few short months to a couple of years until the 6,000 year is reached. Now, look at this. Go to Luke chapter 2. When you get there, let me know by saying amen. Go to Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2. What book are we going to? Go to Luke chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. Notice what the Bible says. Luke chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. And when you get there, let me know by saying amen. Luke chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. Notice what the Bible says. It says, and it came to pass in those days. Now, anybody know what days these are? Luke 2. We studied this in school prompts. Anybody know what days these are? Talk to me, somebody. What days are this in Luke chapter 2? Jesus is getting ready to be born. Is he going to be born in Bethlehem? Yes or no? Where would he have been born if this didn't take place? He would have been born right back in Nazareth in Galilee. Am I right? But something took place. Look at Luke chapter 2, verse 1. Let's read it all together. Verse 1 says, and it came to pass in those days that there went out what went out? A what? Give me another name for decree. Give me another name. A what? A law. A decree from Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus was over Rome, the world's superpower at that time. Who would Rome be today? Talk to me, somebody. Who would Rome be today? Who is the leading power today in the world, just like Rome was back then? The United States of America. Okay, let's go. So it says, in verse 1, it says, from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Verse 4 says, and Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of who? So Jesus, the prophecy say he was going to be born in Bethlehem on time. Yes or no? So about 4,000 years, Jesus was born on time in Bethlehem, and that law allowed Jesus, that decree, to be in the right place at the right what? Now I want to ask you a question. Did the law come after the 4,000 years or just before the 4,000 year period? So my brothers and sisters, as it hath been, so shall it be. There's no new thing under the what? So just before the 6,000 year, what would be the greatest event that lets us know that the 6,000 years almost here is that we should see a